Good morning, everyone. Let's give some time to people as they're joining in before we start. Great, I see people joining. Thank you for joining today. We're going to give it just a minute or so people can join this webinar. How are you doing, Nick?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be talking about the grant and to be meeting with everyone today. It's really rare when we get this much engagement and support. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for being here. I'm so excited because we're talking about something that is definitely dear to my heart. So it seems to me that it's 12:01 and I know we have a short time and this is being recorded. So we will be adding this in our YouTube channel. So if people join us later, that will be fine. So I'm just going to go ahead and start us. Hi, I'm Claudia Cutter. I'm the Executive Director of the California Wheat Commission. We're located in Woodland, which is near Sacramento. And here at the California Wheat Commission, our mission is to represent California wheat producers. And we do a lot of things on their behalf. But one of the things that we recently did, and this is why I invited you all to join us, and thank you, Nick, from CDFA for being here, and I'll let him introduce himself just in a little bit. But before we dig into this webinar, and we will be talking specifically about this grant opportunity that is coming up from CDFA for the Farm to School program. We actually applied this year and we got the grant. So thank you, CDFA, for believing in a wheat project it's pretty unique. And I do want to give everyone a quick update where we started, where we're at, and where we're heading. And this is going to be very brief, because I'm not here to talk about a program, but I do want everyone to see what we have done so far and the potential things that people could do as, they apply for this grant as they partner with schools. So here we go. Wait, that was not the one I wanted to share you guys just yet. So let me go back and let's try it again. And let's do it right in here. Okay, so these basically and very simple, what we wanted and what we applied for was, we want to have more California grown wheat at schools. As you all know, wheat cannot just be grown and eaten and picked from the garden. It needs to be processed. So we had an idea that the school will be the one processing these. Thankfully, we partnered with two rural school districts in San Luis Obispo, Shandon and San Miguel, who believe in this project. So now they are actually getting the wheat from the farmers. They're growing the wheat on their gardens as well as part of the educational component. And they're now making their own flour, which is going to be utilized for their products. So this is kind of just an overview what the program is supposed to be, and teaching kids specifically about whole grains and the importance of eating whole grains. And my final update here, which is just what's happening and what happened yesterday, and I'm so excited. Lauren Thomas from the San Miguel School District sent me this photo. So she used the wheat padwing grown by Fritzsters, our local farmer here in Sacramento Valley, and she made 100% whole wheat muffins. As you can see, kids definitely love them. And we're very excited where this project is going to lead us next. And from there, Nick, take it on. Let me stop share. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Claudia. And I'm looking at everyone's names on the attendees list, and I recognize a bunch of you. So I'm really happy to be talking with you again. And hopefully today can share some good information with you about this Farm to School project that's happening all across California, and show you all the different ways that you can get involved. Right now, everything is still in draft So it's still in development. These aren't like final detailed things I'm giving you. What I'm hoping to do today is just continue to build a relationship with each of you to share this is what we're thinking at this point in time as we're getting ready to launch this program again and to deliver more funding. So I have just a couple slides for you to talk through the grant program, our timeline, when we think things will roll out, all of that stuff. And then I'm hoping to answer questions and do that at the end. So let me share my screen now. So this is our loading screen. So this is the Office of Farm to Fork is where I work in the California Department of Food and Agriculture. And part of our, I'm the Farm to School Program Manager. My email is here on this slide. Claudia, you can also share it with everyone in the notes and everything. And my cell phone number is at the end of the presentation. So if you prefer to just text or call, you can always do that too. So in CDFA, the Department of Food and Agriculture, there's a branch called the Office of Farm to Fork. And we're really like the nutrition security and food access wing. So we do a number of programs related to that. One of the things is we run the California Farm to School Network. So this program has really taken off in the last few years. We started off with just a little bit of limited term funding. Last year, we received $10 million in the state budget, $1.5 million to build our team, and then $8.5 million for a grant program. Then the grant program was given even more money last year. So we received $30 million in grant funding for this year to hand out, and then $30 million in grant funding next year to hand out. So that's what we'll be talking about today is that grant program. As a big picture overview, what is Farm to School? It's local food purchasing. So schools, you know, they serve almost 900 million meals every year come from our schools. It's the biggest restaurant you could ever sell to. And it's the biggest food, like nutrition security and food access point for the community. It's feeding all kids 18 and under. And during COVID, even feeding families and community members. So it's really big purchasing power and a really important opportunity to teach kids and empower them to make good choices about food that fit with their lifestyle and culture. So the first component of Farm to School is local food purchasing. We want schools to spend their money on California grown products. We want them to spend their money on whole and minimally processed products. And we want them to bring back scratch cooking. So we're supporting all of those things. Farm to School also incorporates experiential learning. So getting kids out in the garden, getting their hands dirty, sending them on field trips to see how food is grown. Anyone who's been in an FFA program has gone on a bunch of field trips, has visited farms, has visited mills, has seen how this work is done and has been inspired by it. And then last, Farm to School programs, they create connections between the food on their plate in the cafeteria and the real world, how food is grown. So there's that experiential learning. It also builds connections to the classroom. So if you are using the school garden to teach science class, you know, then there's an opportunity for kids to see how food is more than just nourishment for their body, but it's also scientific study, fun project. So Farm to School is about connecting all three of these things together: local food purchasing, experiential learning, and education in classrooms and cafeterias. So any of these projects that we're doing around Farm to School, any of these grant projects, we want to make sure that they are encompassing all three of these components. Okay, so what does it look like in practice? It looks like Turlock Unified. They have a strong Farm to School program. We set up a tour with Secretary Ross and the first partner, Jennifer Siebel-Newsom, to go see it in action. So as you can see here, this is the education side. This is experiential learning and connecting the classroom and cafeteria. So on the left is a culinary program at a high school. These kids had a full-on brunch set up. There was like 4 people visiting and they had food for like 30. It was so cool, so impressive. And we got to see how those kids use local products from their school district farm and their school gardens in order to like build that connection for the culinary students. They learn where the food comes from, they learn how to prepare it, they get trained for a future job in the culinary industry. It's really cool. On the right is Secretary Ross and the first partner and a group of, I think they were 4th graders, gave a tour of their school garden. So it starts early. When they're young kids, they just go out, they're experiencing the school garden, they're doing fun stuff out there, they're drawing maps and measuring things. But then as they get older, it turns into that career pathway. So there's extra meaning. So this is the educational side. And then that education is connected to their school food services program. So all the oranges in that picture on the left were purchased locally. A small farmer, this school food service director in the blue, he said, I'll just buy all of that. I'll take your whole crop and I'll serve it to kids. And in like 2 days, he served the whole crop. So it's a really powerful thing when schools start to buy local food. So we help make those connections happen through the grant and with our team. On the right is just all the different things they serve. We can sometimes call this photo the wall of pizza, but the pizza has local cheese on it. And then all the sandwiches and stuff further down the road also feature local ingredients. So Turlock, they have the local purchasing component, the scratch cooking component, and then they have that education component wrapped around it. The Farm to School Incubator Grant Program funds a project in Turlock too. Like I said, over the next 2 years, there are $60 million available in the Farm to School Incubator Grant Program to help build these integrated solutions. There's 4 funding tracks for the Farm to School grant. So these are the 4 different access points to these funds. These are the things that we're still refining. So we're planning in later this year, in probably December, we'll go out for public comment. So everyone will see it in action. They'll see like what we've drafted. But for now, this is like where our current state is, what we're thinking, where our heads are at. So there's 4 funding tracks that we're projecting. Track 1, Farm to School for Schools, we call it, funds purchasing and education. I'll get into these more deeply. There's track 2, which is Farm to School partnerships. So it scales up existing projects that like have a big picture, big food system impact. Track 3 is the Farm to School producer grant. That's for if you already sell to schools and you need extra equipment, infrastructure, education, staff in order to grow that sales relationship. Then we have this track for you. That one's new. And then track 4 is Farm to School early childcare and education. I'm not going to talk about that today because I don't think any of you run ECE centers. Instead, I'm going to focus on these first 3 tracks, which are really focused on Farm to School and everything. Okay. And I saw Claudia just put it in the chat too, that you can put any questions that you have in the Q&A section, and I'll answer them at the end of the presentation. I'll go in there and make sure we answer everything. Okay, so these 4 grant tracks, let's take a look. Track 1 is Farm to School for Schools. So in this one, the grants are based on enrollment in the schools, and funding ranges from $100,000 to $1 million. The reason why it's such a big variation is because some school districts have like 500 kids or 50 kids even, and some school districts have 700,000. So it's a big range. Half the school districts in the state are small, and the other half like vary. So, you know, LA Unified is the biggest one, San Diego after that, and Fresno, Sacramento, those all have around like, Fresno and Sacramento have around 50,000 kids. So the projects really vary in funding size, but 100,000 is the minimum. Schools apply for this funding. So a school district, the school nutrition director who runs their nutrition services program, or the superintendent, someone else on the school site, takes the lead on writing this application. And in this one, it's unique that they get to use money to buy local food. So if you're a producer and you want to sell to a school district and the school district says, yeah, it's not in our budget. Well, this grant solves that because they can use the money to buy local. So they could use the money from our grant to purchase your product, whole or minimally processed. So really, really cool that that's allowable. In addition, because we want schools to develop these all-encompassing, these integrated farm-to-school projects, there's also a stipulation that at least 30% of the money must be used for education. So if a school district is going to get $100,000, if they wanted to, they could split it 70-30 and do $70,000 for their food buying budget and $30,000 for their education budget. So make sure kids know about what's happening. Schools can also use portions of that money on infrastructure and staffing, as well as food and education. So it's for a school like, hey, if we had a new oven and a grain mill, we would be able to, we'd be able to buy all this local product. Okay, cool, buy it. Love this. This is totally supporting farm to school. We're in. So schools don't have to do a 70-30 split on this track. They can do 50-50. They can do, as long as it's at least 30% on education. So they could do 50-50, whatever, they could split it up. However, they could do no money for purchasing local food. They could do 100% on education. We would just want to understand why they made that decision in the process. Sean, I see your question. What's the definition of minimally processed food? Something that's milled is minimally processed. It's something that like maintains its defining qualities. So like ground beef is minimally processed, but if you turned that into something, it would be. Dried pasta, I would have to look it up. That's a great question. I do think dried pasta qualifies as minimally processed, but I'll look it up. The USDA has this big list and we reference that. Great question.
Nick, just to interfere quickly. I think last time I did ask you when I applied the first time. And I recall that you did mention that dried pasta or pasta was minimally processed, but definitely you can double check on that. And then we can add that as information that we send to attendees. So,
okay, yeah, we'll double check it. It feels like something we would. Normally we tend towards yes, like on flexibility. But what we want to make sure is just that the kids are getting the best product possible. So dried pasta, you know, it's delicious. That's what we eat in our house, fresh pasta harder. So we'll figure that one out too. Okay, so that was track one. Sorry, let me go back. That was track one. It's for schools to apply. So if you have a school district in your community that you want them to, apply, this is the one you say, hey, look, Farm to School for Schools, you can apply here. And yes, David, I see in the chat, there are definitions for minimally processed from the USDA because the USDA runs school nutrition programs. So they've had to define all of this stuff to manage those initiatives. Okay, track two coming up now. So track two is a little bit, excuse me, it's a little bit bigger and broader. It's the Farm to School Partnerships track. So these grant awards go up to $500,000. So they can be a larger scale award. It's for schools, nonprofits, or producers to apply. And this is to expand existing farm to school projects. So this is if you already have something going, you have a relationship at small scale, you've sold a little bit of product to them, but now you need to scale it up. This is where this partnership would come in. So projects should make a collective impact and involve multiple partners, not just benefit one organization. So like we wouldn't want a school to apply and say like, oh yeah, we're just gonna do more of what we're doing in track one. We're just gonna do that in track two. No, this is about a bigger, broader impact, not just for one organization or one entity, but for the entire food system locally. And the Wheat Commission, the project that Claudia gave the update about at the start of this call, that's a track two grant where they partnered with San Miguel and Shandon and wheat growers to start milling on school sites and do all of that work. That was track two. For us, we see it because, oh, it's multiple school districts. Oh, it's setting an example for how wheat can get into schools when we didn't have an example before. So it was really transformational, and we're excited to see that going. So track two is larger scale. If you have a bunch of small school districts that are like, you know what, I don't want to deal with the headache of administering a grant. All of us little districts were so tapped for people. Instead, let's band together and put a bunch of small school districts together and have a local nonprofit or a local regional organization, local university, whoever, do the administration. Then you can do that too. In Nevada City, in California, in Northern California, there's an organization called Sierra Harvest, and they applied with like 3 or 4 small school districts, and then a couple of their partners that are helping them work on transforming school food to include more locally grown, scratch-cooked meals. So that was a great way for them. Instead of having all these small districts have to bear that administrative burden, they could share it and spread it around. So that's track two, collaboration, big picture, big change. That's what's available there. Okay, and then track three, this is our new farm to school producer grant. So this is still all in development. Like I said, this is what we're projecting right now. This would be for grant awards for individual producers who already have relationships with schools. If you don't have relationships with schools, we want you to reach out to us so we can put you in contact with them and help you build those relationships. But for a lot of farms, especially rural communities, they already know each other. Yeah, I went to school with them. I know them, but we've never been able to make a sale happen. So this would allow funding for you to expand that relationship. If you already sell to them, to expand what you're selling to them, and get what you need. So we're thinking right now that it would be funding up to $100,000. So a pretty significant award. And it would fund infrastructure and equipment, staffing, if you need staff, certifications. Some schools will require specific certifications to sell to them, or educational activities with youth from partner schools. So if they were going to come out and do a field trip or something, this could cover those costs. The specific thing on all of this is that it would have to be directly related to your farm to school project. So you would have to prove to us, you'd have to, like, if you're adding on a new staff member who's going to help with this farm to school project, like, you could only bill us for those hours that are directly related to the project. Or if you're going to bill for your time, you would only bill for your time that's directly related to the farm to school project. And that's just because for us at CDFA, this is the farm to school grant. If you wanted to buy a new, let's say you wanted to bring a new piece of land into production specifically for a school, because this school said they'd buy your whole crop and you're going to expand now into this new area. Well, now all of that would be eligible to bill for our grant because it's directly related to your sales to a school. We want that. We encourage that. We want to support that. Where it could get tricky is like if a school wants a certain portion of your field and then you're only billing for like that little portion, a quarter time of everyone who's working in the field entire, like that's where things get weird. We would provide support to you, but so there is like this administrative thing that comes with it. I'm not trying to like persuade you not to apply because the administration would be so big. Instead, I'm trying to say that like you would just want to have a really clear project of what you're going to do and how it's going to support your sales to schools. I see another question from David in the chat, related question. Will there be FSMA GMP certification requirements? There won't be for the grant. For applying for the grant, there won't be, but for selling to individual schools, there might be. So let's say you sell such a small amount right now that you're under FSMA requirements, but by increasing what you sell, you're going to hit the requirement now. Then an allowable cost for you would be to cover the costs to get certified. Same thing for GAP. You could use this grant to cover your GAP costs. So that's what we're thinking with the producer grant, is that it would be an opportunity for individual producers to scale up what they're doing with schools already.
Nick, I just want to kind of do a quick overview of what you're saying for this one, since this one is new.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is if farmers, our California wheat grain farmers, let's say some of them have never, had a relationship with a school, they need to start building those relationships now before they apply, so they can show proof that they have this relationship going with the schools. And is that correct?
Yeah. So that's what we'll do for every applicant in this thing. We're going to measure or try to give you a score on your application that says, how well do these people actually know each other? Did the relationship just start when the grant application went live, which we're planning for it to go live like in February, maybe, of the new year? Like, did it just start now? Or is there a real history of collaboration and partnership? Have they been on the FFA advisory board? Or have they done field trips? Or have they already sold to the school? All of those things will be taken into account, because for us in this grant, we want to make sure that it's so hard to get into the school market. It can be so hard. If you just need help starting your process, we'll help you with that in a non-competitive format. Like, you don't need to apply in competition with other organizations or other producers to get the help you need. That's what my team and our staff, that's our full-time jobs, is to help you. So that's like, just email us and we can help. But the second piece of it is this grant is like, if you already have your foot in the door and you're starting to see some of this success, let's really help you take it to the next level. Let's help you scale up what you're doing. We know that there's like the giant mega farms, and then there's a lot of small farms. And what we're trying to build back is this mid-size farm. And how do we take our small scale farms and help them grow to this mid-size with consistent purchasing from schools.
Okay, thank you. And so, for example, our farmer, we have 3 farmer, Fritz, Durs, and then John Eck, and I know John is listening as well.
Yeah.
And let's say, you know, John thinks, you know, I really want to bring this to my schools where I live. But, you know, he might be thinking, you know, I need this piece of equipment, like a cleaner, a great storage facility, and also a mill. So that will supply. So, and then he'll be growing his own wheat, let's say. All that could be included as application, like an acceptability. Yeah.
It could go in track 3 and you would just say, here's the work that I'm already doing with school. Here's who I am. Here's all the work that I'm already doing with schools. Here's what I want to buy. And here's how what I want to buy will help me grow what I'm doing with the schools. It's a Christmas list. Here's what I want and here's why.
Thank you.
And that would be the big picture there for the producer track. But then there's options, because the producer track goes to 100 grand. So you could apply in the producer track for whatever it is that you need on the farm to help you. But then you might also apply in track 2 with those same schools that you're partnered with, maybe if you're selling to like 3 or 4 schools, and then they need something else. So you can apply in track 3 and track 2 if you wanted to be part of a broader coalition or partnership too. And then Robert, I see a question, does this track exclude food processors? I don't know yet, honestly. We're still developing that. So in our final RFA that comes out for public comment, you'll see if it excludes it or not. I think it would, I'm not sure. I don't even want to try to answer it yet. There's a lot of if-then scenarios, I think.
So Nick, if I can interfere with that one.
Yeah.
I would think that, remember how you and I were discussing things, how maybe really big school districts, like over 30,000, 20,000 school districts, might not have the same, like to take on a mill and make their own flour, make their own bread. Mm-hmm. How can these school districts might partner with food processors like a bakery or a pasta company, that they are all communicating with the farmer? They can, make the flour, and the processor can actually make the product for the schools. Is that kind of partnership that could happen where a food processor could be part of?
I think that could, I would see that most specifically happening in track 1, where a school knows that they want to buy a product. And so the school is going to pay whatever cost it takes for that processor to make it for them. And so the school is getting money in track 1 to make that purchase. In track 3, it would fund processing equipment for sure. Like if it's the processing equipment that's needed to scale up the production, then get it. But if it's a question of like, is a food processor, like if a specific food processor was going to apply for the track, and they say, we already sell to schools and now we're going to start processing this stuff. I don't know, it gets like gray for us, because then we're like, well, what producers are you getting it from? What types of products is it going to be? It's like a whole nother area of expertise that we don't currently have. So if you are a food processor, I'd love to talk to you more and continue to, dive deeper into that topic. Definitely not a for sure answer at this point. Not black and white just yet. A lot of gray.
Thank you.
Every good question just leads to, 20 more conversations with people to figure out what's needed next. So are there other questions that I can answer at this point? I'm happy to while I'm on here. Okay, so keep typing it in the chat or in the Q&A if you have questions still, but I'm also putting my information on here. That's my work cell phone number, 916-917-6736. You could text me on there or call me on there, whatever is better. I will let you know that my voicemail is not set up, so don't plan on leaving a voicemail, but you can text and say, hey, this is me from this call. I wanted to talk to you about this, and then I'll just call you as soon as I can.
So are there any other questions for Nick in regards to this grant and the opportunities that you might have in, to partner with the school district as a producer or as, an entity? Is there anything else? Nick, do you want to cover something else?
I just have this timeline up here for so people could see it. So public comment, that's where we'll post the all the answers to these questions. Hi, Nan. That's okay. I'll stay on after. I got a little bit extra time. But public comment is going to be when we post here's the producer grant, here's all the rules, here's all the information about it. We're going to post everything about all the tracks. That'll be before the end of the year. And that information will go up so that people can say, hey, you should think about including, for example, if we don't include food processors, you would be able to put that in a public comment to us and say, we think you should include food processors. Here's why, and here would be the impact. And then it's public that you made that comment. And we get to then take all of the comments that we get and make updates and adjustments to the RFA. Applications then we're thinking will open around February. Like I said, this is projected timeline. This is not concrete. Hopefully February we'll have it up and ready to go. And then a long application period where people can ask lots of questions. So February, March, April, 3 months of time to ask questions, join workshops, learn about how to do it, answer any questions you have. And then lastly, if things are submitted in April, in June, we'd probably be able to say who gets the awards, but we'll do that as quickly as possible. Public comments will be submitted through the CDFA website. It's just an email address that you email, and we'll have one up there. Yeah.
We have a couple other questions here.
Okay, I see the one from David in the Q&A too. And is it better to go through Nick for initial contact or direct with schools? Yeah, it depends. I think you can email us, and if we know them, it would be great to be able to do that intro. So if you have a school in your area that you really want to connect to, reach out to us. And if we already know them, then it's a warm introduction. But if it's a cold intro, it's coming from you or from me, either way is fine. So kind of up to you. If you want to talk about strategy on how to engage people, then you could definitely call us and we'll talk it through. Okay, Nan, I see your question. Smaller scale wheat growers, handlers, millers still face obstacles with lacking infrastructure. Feels like this particular grant may not be a real solution for us. Big impact on healthy school lunches, whole grains, but without capital for building some regional facilities, you can't supply the volume. Well, I mean, the track 2 application would be up to $500,000 to build some sort of mill regionally. You could do it at that point. If 500,000 isn't enough, then there's another grant that CDFA has called the Farm to Community Food Hub program. That's about establishing a food hub. Those awards go up to $5 million. But right now what we're thinking is these $500,000 awards could set up some sort of regional milling operation, the few types of mills, and then also pay for the staff that are associated with them. So we're thinking that track 2 would be the solution to that. You would just have to say, here's the schools that are willing to buy from it, and we have a lot of that stuff teed up already. I know you've been doing that work. So we are thinking track 2 is 500,000. You think not enough? You think it's got to go higher?
I want to add that you can apply for these coming year for the 500,000 for those regional mills. And then there's another 500,000 that they could apply for the second year. So if CDFA considers this as a, worth a project to go into it, and then you show that the first phase, this is what you're building, and you need the other $500,000 for phase 2, then potentially, Nan, a person could have $1 million from this grant from year 1 and then from year 2 combined.
Yeah, you could do that. And then also each regional operation could apply separately. So if there was going to be a Northern California, Central California, Southern California, a Coastal California, a Southern, however you wanted to break it out, you could totally do that. And same thing, like Claudia said, there's going to be 500,000, or there's going to be $30 million in grants available this year and 30 next year. So you could apply one after the other. And then for schools could apply in track 1 to purchase the flower. Yes, they could. Thank you, David, for that extra funding. If you have any more research on that, any more of that information, I'd love to talk with you. And send me a link or email it to me and we can set up a time to call. I'd love to learn more and see what else we can do to support. Okay, thank you, perfect. All right, any others? I know we went a couple minutes over.
Any other questions? I just want to, let me see if I can, Nick, do you mind letting me share my screen? I mean, like, I can put my video on. Is there a way?
Oh yeah, let me make you the host.
Okay. So I can see my face.
Okay, try turning it on now.
There you go. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, no, this has been great. I just want to also okay, here, another question from Nan. For wheat partners specifically, will the CDFA be looking for whole grain products? That's a great question.
Yes, whole grain products. So the school requirement is 51% whole wheat. So what we have said in the past, this is where we're going to get really in the weeds here. So it's going to get, it's going to get very detailed. So last year, what we said was that schools cannot use their food purchasing money, so that track 1 money to buy food for their school meals. We said schools can't use it to purchase bread. And the reason for that was because we didn't want to replace like a 51% whole wheat product that isn't great, which is like, now it's California grown, but it's not still might not be a great product. It's just like, they're just saving money on their budget. So what we're looking at right now is 100% whole wheat, allowing those products to be more processed. So like allowing bread products, but trying to limit the number of ingredients that are in them. Yeah, so that's what we're thinking is 100% whole wheat. So we're still fine tuning that language to get it in alignment, but it's similar to what we do with milk products. So we don't allow schools to buy milk with our grant funds, but they can purchase yogurt if the yogurt is like no sugar, no added sugar, and like into these healthy requirements. So we want to do the same thing for wheat and grain products, where they would be allowed to purchase these like value added products that are a little bit more processed, but are still like have a few ingredients in them. So we'll have like that specific word salad, fancy government language for grants. We'll have all that figured out and finalized in the RFA.
I love it. Questions are coming in. I think we got first Sean Finney on the chat. How about high fiber refined flour? That's a wheat flour that Nick, I don't know if you're familiar with, but it's not processed with entire grain, but it actually, the endosperm, which it's what it's the white flour it comes from, it's actually high fiber.
Yeah. So send me information on it. We'll look into that. We can dive deeper. We don't know about it yet. So Sean, if you're able to do that, I'd really appreciate it. And then Angela, I see a question from you in the chat. You're in Washington. We know the Washington farm to school person's information. And if you email me, we can do an email introduction for you to the person who runs their farm to school grant program. Well, their farm to school program. I don't remember if they have a grant or not. So we have a lot of funding in California for this initiative. Like I said, we had 10 million last year, now 30 and 30 going forward for these next 2 years. So for us, it's like, it's crazy. Like most farm to school programs in other states, like Oregon is the next biggest one. They have 10 million, but it kind of varies. Like last year, I think it was 6, like it kind of ebbs and flows with how the economy is going. So I don't know if Washington has a grant, but they definitely have these farm to school networks and places where you can connect with others.
Thank you for that. I want to say that this has been a great experience for us. I want to tell everyone, if you are considering either you're a farmer or you are a partner who wants to be part of these, a nonprofit, or even hopefully the processors can be part of these and you're partnering with schools and making it happen. I just want to tell you that this was my first grant that I applied for and that I also have been managing. And it has been the easiest, smooth process. I hear really crazy stories about other grants and administration. And I would say working with Nick, Amy, and the whole CDFA Farm to School team has been very, very easy. And so if you are afraid to apply, don't be afraid. And they are always there to answer questions to you. If you believe that children should eat better food and you have something that can offer the schools, I'll say go for it. I'll be happy to also share with you what we did in our application, so you have some sort of a guideline on how we applied. I'll be happy to share that with you. And also I just want to say thank you to Nick, because they have heard our concerns about food nutrition at schools, especially with grains. Grains are always an afterthought of the programs. And that was why we applied for these, because we wanted to show what can be done with a grain project. And we have demonstrated that kids love 100% whole wheat products, and they're going to love it even more. And it's totally doable with a lot of work and effort. So I just want to thank CDFA and the whole team for allowing us and believing in our project, because a lot of times I had shaking heads thinking, how is that even possible?
Well, thank you. And like I said at the top of this call, like, this is a relationship building call. This is not like I have all the answers and I'm here to tell you yes or no. Like, we're figuring this out and we're constantly evolving it to make it more accessible and have a bigger impact. So if you have more stuff you want to talk through, other ideas to share, we have this little bit of time before the public comment period where we're still talking to experts in the field, people who live and breathe not just farm to school, but wheat production, all of this stuff. Like, we're just trying to learn about it and see how we can best serve you as the government entity who's tasked with expanding this local food system and helping farmers connect to schools. So you're the expert. We're here to learn and listen and make sure that, we're supporting this the most effective way as possible.
Well, thank you again, Nick. I think we have accomplished. You hopefully learn a little bit more about this program, and ask us any questions. And you already have Nick's email, but if you need information or any more information, I'm just going to put my email on the chat room here quickly before we leave. This was a very informal webinar, but we just want to get the information out, and I'll be putting this in our YouTube channel if you want to go back. Thank you, Nick, again. You have a wonderful rest of your week, and thank you everyone for watching, and I hope we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Nan. Bye. Bye, everyone.